Okay, good day, everyone, and welcome to ELD1501. So this is an orientation lesson for ELD1501, Early Learning and Development Areas, and I am your lecturer, Dr. A. Carrim, and you can contact me on ecareer1@unisa.ac.za. So before we begin, I want to take a moment to recognize each and every one of you, because I know that being here is not always easy. Some of you came here after a long day at work. Some of you are parents who had to take care of your children before you could even think about studying. Some of you are balancing family responsibilities, financial pressures, and personal challenges, and yet you are still here. And that tells me something important about you. It tells me that you have made a decision to invest in yourself. It tells me that you believe in your future. And it also tells me that you're willing to grow. I want you to understand this clearly. You are not just studying a module. You are preparing yourself to become someone who will influence the lives of young children, and children who will look at you for guidance, children who will learn from your words, your actions, and your belief in them. So never underestimate how powerful that is. But I also want you to know you do not need to have everything figured out right now. This is a journey. You will learn step by step. You will grow step by step, and sometimes you will struggle, and this is part of growth. So what matters is that you keep going. And in this module, you're not alone. We are learning together. I also want to encourage you from the very beginning. Please use the discussion forums. Do not think that your voice is not important. Your experiences, especially those of you who are parents, caregivers, already working in the early years, are incredibly valuable. When you share your thoughts, you help others learn. And when you read others' experiences, you grow too. So learning is not just about reading, it's about reflecting, it's about engaging, and it's about participating. As we begin today, I want you to ask yourself one question. Why did I choose this journey? Hold on to that reason, because that reason will carry you through the challenges and lead you to your success. And once again, welcome to ELD 1501. So I think I already welcomed you in the first slide, but this module is basically, your foundation for understanding young children, how they grow, how they learn, how they develop. So you're beginning an important journey towards becoming a professional early childhood development educator. You're not just studying a module, you are preparing to shape young minds and futures. So I welcome you again. And now I want to dive into, an understanding about UNISA and online learning. Now let's talk honestly about studying at UNISA. UNISA is different from traditional universities. Here, nobody is standing in front of you every day, reminding you what to do. Nobody's chasing for you for your progress. And for many of you, this can feel both freeing and challenging at the same time. This is an open distance and e-learning university. So because because the reality is you're managing many responsibilities. You may be working full time, you may be raising children, like I said, maybe supporting your family, and now you're also a student. So that is not easy. There will be days when you feel tired, days when you feel overwhelmed, days when studying feels like the last thing you want to do. And that is normal. But here is what I want you to remember. You do not need to do everything all at once. You just need to keep moving forward step by step. So through this module is basically a fully online and delivered through the My UNISA system. And even if it means that you're studying for 30 minutes, at a time, even if it means reading one section at a time, even if it means participating in one discussion, progress is built through consistency, not perfection. And this is where your mindset becomes powerful. You must begin to see yourself not just as someone trying to pass a module, but as someone building a future. Because, every time you log in, every time you study, every time you participate, you're investing in yourself. And I also want to encourage you strongly, use the discussion forums again. It's basically your space. It is your space to share your thoughts, your experiences, your questions. Many of you already have life experiences. Many of you are parents. Many of you work with children. So your voice really matters. I can't emphasize it enough. So, and also remember, when you participate, you're helping yourself learn, you're helping others learn too. And that's when learning becomes more powerful and we learn together. So I want to challenge you to not be invisible in this module. Be present, be engaged, be part of the learning community, because your success begins with participation. So online learning requires you to take responsibility for your learning, be disciplined and organized, manage your time effectively, engage actively with learning materials. Remember, you are in control of your learning journey. Your success depends on your commitment. So your virtual campus is My UNISA. So let's now talk about My UNISA. I want you to start seeing My UNISA not just as a website, but as your classroom. That is where your learning happens. That is where your journey unfolds. And everything you need is there. Your study materials, your assignments, your announcements, and most importantly, like I mentioned, your discussion forums. But here is something very important I want you to understand. The students who succeed are not the students who only log in when there is assignment due, what we've noticed in previous years. They are the students who stay connected. They log in regularly, and even if it's just for a few minutes, they check announcements, they read discussions, they stay engaged. Because when you stay connected, you stay motivated. But when you disconnect for long periods of time, it becomes harder to come back. You feel lost, you feel overwhelmed. And I know many of you are balancing work, family, and other responsibilities as as I mentioned, you may not have hours every day. That's okay. So just even if you log in for 10 to 15 minutes, it makes a difference. It keeps your mind connected to your goal. And now I want to talk to you about something very important. You know, but to always, what matters is your honest reflection. Your voice matters, your ideas matters, your experiences matter. So I want to encourage you that, true participation is where real learning happens. So access your study materials, complete assessments on time, participate in discussions, receive, important announcements, communicate with your lecturer if you lost, log in regularly to stay engaged and informed. And now when we looked at the purpose of the module, now I want to talk about the purpose of this module and why it matters so much. The module is not just about memorizing information. It's about helping you understand the children you'll be teaching deeply and meaningfully. So many children think many people, think teaching young children is simple. They think it's just about singing songs, telling stories, or keeping children busy. But in reality, early childhood education is one of the most important stages of human development, because this is where the foundation of a child's life is built. And this is where children begin to develop confidence. This is where they begin to understand themselves. This is where they begin to see the world. And as future educators, you will be part of this valuable process. How amazing is that? So you will begin to understand how children think. You will begin to understand why they behave the way they do. You will begin to understand how your actions, your words, your support can shape their development. And I want you to also reflect on your own life. Think about your childhood. Think about the teachers who made you feel supported. Think about the teachers who made you feel confident. And those teachers did more than just teach content. Think about it. They helped shape who you became. And now you're preparing to become that person for someone else. That is so powerful. And I want you to use the discussion forums to reflect on this. I want you to share your experiences. Ask yourself, what kind of teacher do I want to become? Do I want to be a teacher who only gives instructions? Or do I want to be a teacher who inspires growth? Your journey to become that educator starts here. So you will learn to understand how children develop, apply theories of child development, support children's learning, become an effective ECD educator. You are developing the knowledge and skills needed to support children's holistic development. So when we look at early learning and development areas, there are 6 important development areas. And now let's talk about this. These 6 areas are the foundation of a child's development. And I want you to understand something very important. Children do not develop in only one way. They do not develop only academically. They develop emotionally, socially, physically, creatively, and psychologically. So for example, a child who feels safe and loved develops confidence. A child who is encouraged to speak develops communication skills. A child who is allowed to explore develops thinking skills. A child who is supported develops belief in themselves. This is why these 6 areas are so important. because they focus on the whole child, not just academic skills. And as a future educator, your role is not just to teach information, your role is to support development, to create environments where children feel safe, where children feel valued, where children feel capable. And I want you to reflect on something personally. Think about a child in your life. It could be your own child, a relative, a child you have worked with. What helps the child feel confident? What helps the child feel safe? What helps the child learn? I want you to share your thoughts in the discussion forum. Because when you begin to connect theory with real life, you start understanding, basically your understanding becomes deeper. That's what I'm trying to say. So, and remember, education is not just about teaching, it's about developing human potential and you becoming someone who will help shape that potential. So think about their well-being, their identity and belonging, their communication, how they can explore maths, creativity and knowledge and understanding of the world. Remember, these areas support the full development of the child. Children develop intellectually, emotionally, socially, and physically, as I mentioned. Now we're looking at Learning Unit 1, an introduction to the theoretical knowledge informing the elders. Now in Learning Unit 1, you are introduced to the theories that explain how children learn and develop. And I want to be very honest with you. When children hear the word theory, they sometimes feel nervous. They think theory is difficult or not practical, but theory is actually very powerful. Because theory helps you understand why children behave the way they do. It helps you understand what children need from you as an educator. For example, you will learn about Pickett's theory, who taught us that children learn by exploring by exploring. Children do not learn best by just sitting and listening. They learn by touching, by playing, by experimenting. And you will also learn about Vygotsky's theory, who taught us that children learn to interaction, through that relationships with adults and other children. This means your role as a teacher is not just to give instructions. Your role is to guide, to support, to encourage. You will also learn about Ferreri's theory, who believe that children are not empty containers, waiting to be filled. They are thinkers. They are capable of understanding and reflecting. And this applies not only to children, but also to you. You are not here to passively receive information. You are here to think, to reflect, to question, to grow. And this is where your participation in discussion forums become very important, because when you reflect and share your thoughts, you deepen your understanding. I want you to reflect on your own experiences as a learner. Ask yourself, when did I learn best? When was it? Was it when someone forced me to memorize? Was it when I was engaged, supported, and encouraged? And I encourage you to share your thoughts in the discussion forum, whatever the activity may be, because reflection transforms information into understanding, and understanding transforms you into a better educator. So this is basically just a summary of what you can expect in Learning Unit 1, not basically everything, but just remember to read thoroughly. Okay, so Learning Unit 2, where you're contrasting early learning development areas in different countries. So remember, you begin to see how early childhood education is approached in different parts of the world, countries like New Zealand, India, Uganda, and Finland. And I want you to understand why this is important, because it helps you realize that education is not the same everywhere. Education is shaped by culture. It's shaped by values, by people. But despite all these differences, one thing remains the same. Children everywhere need support, care, and opportunities to grow. Children everywhere need to feel safe. Children everywhere need to be valued. And children everywhere need educators who believe in them. And this is where I want you to reflect deeply. Think about South Africa. Think about your own experiences. Think about children in your community. What challenges do they face? What support do they need? How can you, as a future educator, make a difference? So many of you are already parents. Many of you already work with children. Many of you have seen the realities children face on a daily basis. Especially in rural areas. So your experiences are valuable. And this is why I want you to use the discussion forum again, because your voice helps build understanding, because another teacher might learn about a context that you stay in. So not only for yourself, but others too. When you read when you read the experiences of other students, you begin to see new perspectives. You begin to grow and you see the power of shared learning. And you're not learning alone, you're part of a learning community. And remember, you'll find yourself teaching in different contexts, in different schools. So we all need to understand that every school, every teacher, every teacher experiences teaching differently. So remember, you have to understand the purpose of international ECE curricula, in terms of how to help children prepare for lifelong learning. You're looking at key curriculum approaches in New Zealand, where it be child-centered, socio-cultural curriculum integrated, all of that. India, looking at more holistic play-based curriculum. Uganda, focus on more moral values and mother tongue learning. Finland, the educate model, combining education and care, emphasizing equality, all of that. Key similarities would be play-based play-based child-centered learning, because that's how children learn, and focus on the holistic development as well as the strong role teachers, families, and culture have. So the key message here is ECE curricula differ by context, but share the goal of supporting holistic development, inclusion, and lifelong learning. Okay, so let's look at Learning Unit 3, analysis of the South African early learning development areas with India. And this is, now we begin to look specifically at South Africa and how our early learning development areas support children's development. And we compare, this with India and another country with its own unique challenges, cultures, and realities. And I want you to understand something important here. Children do not grow in isolation. They grow within families, they grow within communities, they grow within cultures, and their development is shaped by those environments. For example, a child who feels safe develops confidence. A child who feels respected develops identity. A child who is encouraged develops curiosity. But a child who feels ignored, unsupported, or discouraged may struggle to reach their full potential. And this is where you as a future educator become so important, because you may be the person who creates that safe place for a child. You may be the person who believes in a child when nobody else does. You may be the person who helps a child discover their potential. And I want you to reflect on your own experiences. Many of you remember teachers who believed in you, and you may also remember teachers who did not. And think about the difference they made in your life. I encourage you to share this reflection, because your experiences matter again. And you're not just studying to complete assignments. Please, students, you need to understand that you are preparing to become someone who can change lives. So you learn about the 6 elders that we noted, how they provide foundation for school subjects, lifelong learning, and overall development. The comparison between South Africa and India, they both focus on holistic development. They both emphasize play-based learning and child-centered approaches. They both promote communication, in terms of early literacy, mathematics, creativity, cultural identity. And the mother tongue is encouraged, to strengthen understanding and identity. The key curriculum influences are important for you to understand, in terms of development psychology, how it guides curriculum design, the play and child-initiated learning, the curriculum, how it prepares school readiness and lifelong learning, equity and access, how it remains a major challenge in both countries. We've seen that during COVID time as well. So key message for teachers is elders support holistic development and school readiness, and the curriculum must be inclusive, child-centered, and culturally responsive, and understanding international comparison improves teaching practice and supports better child outcomes. Now we look at Learning Unit 4. We explore something very important, the balance between structure and play in early childhood education. So these are reflections on the pros and cons of structuring early learning and care in South African context. So remember now I want you to think about this carefully. Structure is important. Structure gives children stability, and it helps children feel safe. It helps them understand routines and expectations. But at the same time, play is not just entertainment. Play is learning. When you play, they are thinking. When children play, they are exploring. When children play, they are solving problems. And when children play, they are developing confidence. And sometimes adults misunderstand this. Sometimes adults think children must always sit still, they must be quiet, and they must follow instructions. But children learn best when they're engaged, when they're curious, when they're allowed to explore. But this applies to you. This applies to you too. As adult learners, you learn best when you engage, when you reflect, when you participate, not when you're passive. This is why your participation is so important in this module. You want to reflect on your own experiences. If you a parent, you may have seen how your child learns to play. If you work with children, you may have seen how children grow and when they're given these opportunities to explore. So create environments where learning can happen naturally, and you are becoming that educator. So structured learning, understand the pros, the cons, how it creates that routine, the discipline, the clear expectations, and it supports school readiness, and basically promotes that skills needed for social, communication and emotional regulation, and it's linked to quality standards, but structure, when it comes to the cons, it can limit creativity and child agency. It may prioritize outcomes over holistic development. It may risk, schoolification, make it too formal, less play. It may disadvantage under-resourced communities. And remember, the role of play is very important. It supports creativity, problem solving, but it needs to be structured and unstructured. You remember, that's why as a teacher, you need to gain the necessary skills, the training to implement quality play pedagogy. And the key message here is quality EC requires balance, professional development, and equitable access. Structure should support, not replace, play-based child-centered learning. I can't overemphasize that. Okay, so now we've come to just some tips that I'd like to give you as your lecturer, for study plan and time commitment. Let's talk honestly about time and commitment. I know many of you are not full-time students sitting at home and with nothing else to do. You're working, full-time. Many of your parents, many of your families who depend on you. And many of you are just tired by the time you even think about studying. And I want you to know, I see that, I respect that. I get a lot of emails, but studying in your situation requires strength. It requires sacrifice. It requires you to make difficult choices. And sometimes it means studying when you would rather rest. Sometimes it means studying when nobody else sees your effort. But I want you to remember why you started. You started because you want something better for yourself, for your family. You started because you want to grow. You started because you want to build a future. And success does not come from studying everything at once. Success comes from small, consistent efforts. And if you study for 20 to 30 minutes a day, instead of scrolling on TikTok, on Instagram, this is your time to study. So even if you read one section at a time, what matters is consistency. So I want to encourage you, create a study routine that works for your life, not someone else's life. Your life may be in the early morning, maybe at night, maybe during quiet moments. So find your time, protect your time, because that time is an investment in your future. And I also want to encourage you to stay connected to the module site. Stay connected, stay motivated. When you see others sharing, struggling, growing, you realize you're not alone. And this is not a journey you walk alone. We walk it together. So consistent efforts leads to success. Remember, it needs at least 120 hours of study. To succeed, you must study regularly, you must participate in learning activities, complete all assessments, manage your time effectively. Success comes from discipline, planning, and consistent effort. So when I come to the assessments, I want to also say, now I want everyone to focus carefully here, because this is how you will pass this module. There is no exam, students. The final mark comes entirely from your assessments, your summative, your formative and summative. So this means your success is built step by step through the work you submit during the year. Let me explain. Let me explain. So assessment 1 is a quiz. The quiz will help you check your understanding of the module content, and it is designed to help you engage with the learning material and make sure you follow the work. Assessment 2 and 3 are written assessments with longer questions. These are not just about giving short answers. Please, students, these assessments will ask you to explain, reflect, and show your understanding. You will need to think carefully and connect what you have learned to real life situations or themes that, asked of you. So these assessments help you develop your thinking as a future educator. And finally, Your summative assessment is a portfolio. This portfolio is very important. It represents your learning journey. It shows your understanding, your reflection, and your growth throughout this module. It is not something to fear. Remember, it is something to build step by step as you progress. Now, I want to say something very honestly. Many students are capable of passing, but they do not submit their assessments. Not because they're not intelligent, because life becomes busy and they fall behind. And I understand that many of you are balancing, like work, families, responsibilities, but submitting your assessments is your responsibility. So please don't send me emails about what happened during that time. It's about planning. It's about consistency. So each assessment you submit brings you closer to success. And one of the best ways to prepare for your assessment is by participating from now. When you participate, when you start reading and becoming familiar with the content and, start preparing yourself to do assessments for this module, you can build confidence and your assignments become easier to complete. So please do not disconnect from this module. Stay engaged, stay committed, because your future is built through your effort you make today. So remember, 3 formative assessments, basically it will count 45, the weight will be 45% of your mark. The summative assessment, which will be a portfolio, will contribute 55% weighting of your mark, and that's how you get a total of 100%. And you have to get at least 50% to pass. Please don't work only for 50%. You want to do your best. So if you do not submit assignments, you lose those marks, and most probably you won't find yourself passing this module. Take every assessment opportunity. Even if you miss one, it can mean that you will basically fail this module because everything is weighted a different way. So basically, if you look at it, you lose marks to allow you to pass. Okay, submission of assessments. Remember, now that you understand the types of assessments, let's talk about submission, because submission is your responsibility, students. Your assessments must be submitted on MyUnisa. There is no physical submissions. Everything happens online. And I want to emphasize something very important. Deadlines matter. The time and the due date. So I understand that many of you are balancing, a lot of things, unexpected things happen, but one of the most important skills you are developing now is the responsibility. Professionalism begins here, students. As a future educator, you will have deadlines, you will have responsibilities, you will be accountable. So use this time to build those habits. Do not wait until the last minute. Do not assume you will remember. Plan ahead, give yourself time. Even if submitting 1 or 2 days earlier, not even 1 or 2 days earlier, even a week earlier, can reduce stress and protect you from unexpected problems like internet issues, system delays, when everyone's trying to submit at the same time. I also want to say that students, when you submit your work, submit work that reflects your effort. Work that reflects your thinking, work that reflects your commitment to your future, because every assignment you submit is not just about marks. It's about building your identity as a professional. And again, I want to remind you how important it is, to stay committed to your growth, and because every submission you complete moves you closer to your goal. So follow the guidelines, work on your own, and remember, no email submissions will be accepted. Academic integrity is something I have to mention in this orientation. I want to talk to something that goes beyond this module, something that defines who you are, not just as a student, but as a professional, and this is academic integrity. Academic integrity simply means honesty. A lot of students say they don't understand. It means the work that you submit reflects your own thinking, your own effort, and your own understanding, not AI, students. It is so obvious when students use AI. On our side, you don't understand. The copying and pasting is getting out of hand. Sometimes when a student feels overwhelmed, they may be tempted to copy someone else's work or take shortcuts with AI. But I want you to remember something very important. You are not just here to submit assignments. You are here to develop yourself into a thinking teacher. If you copy someone else's work or, submit AI work, you don't grow. You do not build your knowledge, you do not build your confidence. And confidence comes from knowing that you did the work yourself. Even if your answer is not perfect, it's yours. It's something you can be proud of, because learning is not about perfection, it's about progress. I want you to see yourself as not just as a student, but as a future educator. Children will one day look up to you. They will learn from your example. So the habits you build now matter. Your honesty matters, students. Your integrity matters. And if you ever feel unsure or confused about the assignment, rather ask. Use a discussion forum, ask questions. You can even email me as your lecturer. We are here to support your learning, but your growth must come from your effort and you need to believe you're capable of that, students. So avoid plagiarism, submit your own work, follow academic rules. Integrity is essential for your success and professional development. And now I want you to remember something very important. You're not alone in this journey. As I mentioned, sometimes studying through distance can feel isolating, but you may be studying late at night and things like that. But support is available to you. It's available through, you can basically access my UNISA, ask your lecturer, in discussion forums. So the support exists. And, you basically need to stay connected, ask questions, but you must take the step to engage with it. We find that students ignore the support. And remember, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of commitment to your growth, and your growth matters. So please use all the support services that you have. And I want to remind you that of your responsibility as a student. Now I want you to pause for a moment, basically, and reflect and honestly with yourself. Your success in this module does not depend on your luck. It depends on your commitment, your choices, and it depends on your willingness to keep going, even when life gets busy and difficult. And I know we talked about the responsibilities, but you must ask yourself, am I taking responsibility for my learning? Am I making time for my studies, even in small ways? Am I engaging with this discussion forum? Am I giving my best effort, not for anyone else, but for myself? Because this journey is not about pleasing anyone else. It's about building your own future. So remember that, it's about thinking critically about progress, identifying your weaknesses, and improving continuously. You're responsible for your future, students. So the teacher you become tomorrow depends on the effort and reflection you practice today. So your role as a future educator, I want you to think, beyond this module, beyond the assignments, beyond the deadlines. I want you to think about the future educator you're becoming. One day, a child will walk into your classroom. That child may be confident, or that child may be afraid. That child may believe in themselves, or that child may doubt themselves. And you will have the power to influence that child, not just academically, but emotionally, psychologically, humanly. Your words will matter. Your actions will matter. Your belief in that child would matter. You may be the person who helps a child believe in themselves for the first time, and you may be the person who helps a child discover their potential. You may be the person who creates a safe place for a child and who has never felt safe before. Never underestimate your responsibility, students. And I also want you to reflect, on your on how you that you're not just studying for a qualification. You're building a profession. You're building your identity. You're becoming this, an educator. So your growth starts here, and it starts with your willingness to engage. Remember, education is not just teaching; it's transforming lives. My final message here for you today is that before we end today, I want you to remember something very important. You are capable. Even if you feel unsure, even if you feel overwhelmed and tired, you are capable. The fact that you're here means you made a decision to grow, and growth is not always easy. So there will always be days where you feel, motivated, but also when you feel exhausted. So remember this, every successful educator was once exactly where you are. So keep learning, keep growing, believe in your ability to succeed. I believe in your ability to grow, and I'm honored to be part of your journey. Welcome to ELD1501, and your journey begins now. Thank you, students. All the best.